Chapter 7. We'll be landing in Paris in 15 minutes. Please fasten your seatbelts. Jack's pilot announced their arrival, and Bella's grip tightened on the armrests. Ever since she was a little girl, she'd been afraid of flying. Her stomach clenched as she looked out the window and saw how high in the air they were. The private jet's engine droned on loudly as they descended. She still couldn't believe they were in France. Her body hummed with excitement. Everyone had gone home late last night after the catered wedding meal, so Bella and Jack didn't get away until later this morning. But the additional hours had given her time to check on her dad and to reassure herself that he was doing all right. Nurse Marmee assured Bella that her dad was healing as well as could be expected, and that he would be fine for the week while her and Jack were on their honeymoon. Bella glanced over at Jack, who was busy working on his laptop. Everyone believed they were enjoying a normal and relaxing honeymoon like all married couples in love. It seemed both of them had been very convincing. Even though Bella had enjoyed all the extra attention Jack showered on her during their wedding day yesterday, she knew it was only for show. Nevertheless, when Jack had taken her to the conservatory last night, Bella's heart betrayed her. Her new husband's concern for her, and the way he'd done his best to ease her stress, had reached into the deepest part of her heart. Later, when he'd surprised her by giving her the pink rose, she'd all but melted. That was the first time she'd glimpsed Jack's tender side. Witnessing her husband's caring heart caused Bella to hope that he was beginning to soften a little. Yet, Jack's very businesslike conversation with her this morning dispelled that hope. We'll start by touring a couple of theme parks in Paris. Then, if we have time, we'll take a look at those in the Netherlands. This should inspire us with fresh ideas so we can finish the designs for the Rose Adventure Park. Jack closed up his laptop computer, placed it inside its leather carrying case, and turned towards her. The plane taxied down the runway, finally coming to a stop. I've always wanted to see the theme parks in Europe, Jack. This will be a great way to spark new ideas for theme park designs, but I hope we will also have some fun. Bella held her purse tight to her chest as she stood to her feet. Jack mumbled something about not wasting time and sticking to the project's deadline as he walked behind her. A limo was there to meet them and took them through the streets to their luxury hotel in the heart of the city. Jack placed his hand on the small of her back as they walked through the columned entryway and into the spacious luxury hotel. As they followed the concierge to the elevator, Bella couldn't help but notice the paintings of cherubs on the high ceilings. To her, it seemed like everything here was so grandiose, with intricate designs like nothing she'd ever seen. She could spend hours just looking at the artwork in this hotel alone. You'll be able to see more of the artwork in the morning. Jack reached for her hand, and Bella absent-mindedly followed him, still thinking of the beautiful designs. The elevator took them to the top floor and their own private suite of rooms. Thank you. Jack gave the concierge a large tip after he brought their luggage into their suite and organized it in their rooms. The glow of the lamp in the corner lit up the darkness, revealing a large suite with every possible convenience. Jack walked to the middle of the room and looked around. Bella held a hand to her mouth and stifled a yawn. I asked the concierge to put your bags in the bigger room. Jack pointed to the largest room on the south side. A surge of relief swept over her. Jack had already planned out their separate rooms. She should have known that he would. He was meticulous when it came to details. Bella's cheeks warmed, and she felt a little embarrassed at the direction of her thoughts. She peered up at him. Thanks for organizing everything and for giving me the larger room, Jack. That was thoughtful. You're welcome. Jack stared at her for a moment, his expression unreadable. Bella squirmed under his intense gaze. I'm beginning to get tired, so I'll talk to you in the morning. Good night, Jack. Bella nodded, hurrying toward the large bedroom, sweeping the door closed. She leaned her back against the door and expelled a breath. Jack was far too appealing. He might have a scar on his face, but that didn't diminish his charm in any way. She would need to be extra vigilant to keep her heart from falling for her fake husband. How would she manage to keep her distance when they were in close quarters for the next 7 days? Bella had just stepped out of the shower the next morning when she heard a loud knock and someone calling out room service. With hurried movements, she fixed her hair, put on a little makeup, and slipped into her comfy jeans and pink t-shirt. As she stepped out of her room, she saw Jack sitting at the table drinking his coffee, busy working on his computer. "Good morning, Jack." Bella walked to where Jack was seated at the table. Room service had delivered a large breakfast that included orange juice and coffee. The smell of bacon, eggs, and hash browns wafted up her nose as she sat down at the table. Her stomach growled loudly in response. Jack glanced over at her. "Good morning, Bella. I take it you're hungry?" His grin was contagious as he set his computer aside and uncovered the food. "Yeah, famished, actually." Reaching for the large spoon, she filled her plate. Jack spoke of plans for the day in between bites. "I thought we could begin by going to one of the old bookshops here in Paris. Then after that we could visit one of the theme parks near the city." "That would be lovely, Jack." Bella placed her glass of orange juice on the table, a big smile on her face. "I'm excited to see what kind of rare books they have." "Good." Jack took a sip of his coffee and looked at his watch. "Pierre, our driver, will have the car waiting below in 15 minutes. They both finished their breakfast around the same time, rode the elevator downstairs, and hurried through the hotel's lobby. "Good morning, Pierre. Thank you for driving us." Their driver held the door open for them, and soon they drove slowly through the busy streets of Paris. The sounds of bicycle bells, scooters hurrying along, and tires crunching over the cobbled streets were unique to the City of Lights. It reminded Bella of 1950s noir films. In the distance, she spied the 12th century Notre Dame Cathedral and the Eiffel Tower that loomed tall over the city. "If you like, we can come back and see more of the sights of Paris." Jack caught her staring out the window at the sights. "Yes, that would be wonderful, Jack." Bella turned to Jack, surprised that he would want to come back. She knew he was a man who liked to stay out of the limelight. It touched her heart that he would consider flying back to Paris so she could see more of the sights. "But for now, we'll see about finding some more rare books." Bella grinned. The driver slowed the car to a stop along a side street where there was less traffic. Jack stepped out onto the sidewalk, holding her hand as they moved between the large crowds of people walking between the shops. Jack held the door open to the large bookstore. The owner's love of unique books was displayed in the store name. "Nous aimons les livres uniques," which translated was "We love unique books." Inside, upper and lower floors were filled with books. "Bonjour, and welcome." The older gentleman welcomed them to his store. "Hello," Bella greeted him. Immediately the man switched to English. "What can I help you find?" "Do you have a section for rare books in English?" Bella asked. "Oui, but of course. Follow me." The man took them up the staircase to the second floor. "We have a lot of English-speaking tourists, so most of this upper floor is dedicated to English books. Anything I can help you find?" "If you could show me where to find old science and historical books on inventions, that would be helpful." "Oui, but of course." The dignified older man walked over to the far wall, where there were rows and rows of scientific books. "I hope you can find what you're looking for here." "It looks great. We'll look through these books and see what we can find. Thank you." Bella glanced over at the store owner and smiled. "Thank you so much." "You're most welcome. Let me know if you need anything else." The store owner walked back down the stairs. Bella picked up a book on useful inventions for the home and started paging through it. "Are you looking for a book for your dad?" Jack turned to her, closing the book in his hand. Yes, Dad has often mentioned how he would like to read more about the inventions in the 1800s or early 1900s. He thinks it would help his own creativity and inspire new designs. He's probably right. Jack set down his book and picked up another, browsing through its pages. Bella was all too aware of Jack standing next to her as she skimmed through the text of an old book. The scent of sandalwood and a fresh outdoorsy smell she loved so much wafted up her nose as she stood close to her new husband. Peering over at him, she admired his handsome face, as well as the fact that Jack took her to a bookstore, knowing that she loved it so much. A tuft of brown hair slipped down over one of his eyebrows, and she had to stop herself from reaching up to push the curl back into place. Jack turned his head suddenly, and her cheeks heated as his gaze met hers. Embarrassed to be caught staring, she showed him the hand-drawn picture in the yellowed pages. This book would be something Dad would find interesting. I think you're right. Jack leaned closer and whispered, but personally, I find the woman next to me far more intriguing than a history book on science. The corners of her mouth turned up at his compliment, and Bella turned to look at him. As soon as she did, she realized her mistake. Jack's face was so close to her own that she could feel his warm breath on her skin. His lips were mere inches from hers. Bella peered over to see Jack's eyes darken with intensity. She moistened her lips with the tip of her tongue, her thoughts all in a tangle from his compliment. Jack leaned down, his dark eyes focused on her lips, when the bell attached to the front door chimed, announcing more visitors to the bookstore. Bella hurriedly stepped away from Jack. His lips formed a slow grin, as if enjoying every moment of her discomfort. She dropped the book in her hand and reached down to put it in the basket, telling herself she would not let Jack fluster her. I'm going to look at a few more books before we go. Bella was desperate to move away from Jack. Take your time, Bella. The sound of his lazy voice irritated her. Why wasn't he flustered like she was? He almost kissed her in a public bookstore. Bella swallowed, trying to clear away her frustration, and walked to the next aisle. It took a few minutes to calm her nerves before she could focus on books that some of her clients had asked her for through her website. She didn't know how long she took, looking through the bookshelves among the aisles, but she did her best to get 2 of every book. That way she would have books in stock for the next person. With her basket full, she looked along the aisles until she found Jack. Did you find the books you were looking for? Jack grinned at the sight of books that were beginning to overflow her basket. Yes, I was happy to find a few of the books my website customers needed. I also found what looks to be a really old version of the novel Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Where did you see it? Bella walked over to the aisle. I don't know if it's a first edition of the book, but I found it over here. Bella looked along the bookshelf and under other books, her brow furrowed. Well, that's strange. The book was here just a minute ago. Jack looked along the shelf. I don't see it here either. I'll ask the store owner if he knows where it could have gone to. That's a good idea. Jack reached over and took the heavy basket from her hands. Looks like we're ready to go then. Yes, we are. Thanks, Jack. Bella had a wide smile on her face as she walked down the stairs. She was so excited about all the great books she'd found. Jack bought the books and asked the bookshop owner for sturdy canvas bags. They left the store and found Pierre waiting for them. Soon they were on their way. The driver stopped the car at the front entrance to one of the most popular theme parks in Paris. A large pink castle dominated one end of the theme park, with a hidden dragon lurking beneath it. A massive mountain with a roller coaster ride looked inviting. Jack purchased their pass, and they walked into the park. Oh, Jack, that looks like fun. Let's take a picture with these characters. Bella saw 7 dwarf-like characters, all dressed up as miners. She grabbed Jack's hand, pulling him over to join the lineup of other picture takers. Bella, I don't like to get my picture taken. Oh, Jack, please, just this once. Jack nodded, a small resigned smile on his face. Place your arm around your wife and stand close together. The photographer spoke to Jack. He complied and placed his arm around Bella, pulling her close. Warm tingles ran down her back and arms where Jack touched her. He kissed the top of her head, and the photographer started snapping his camera. The dwarves surrounded them on both sides. It wasn't long before the photographer finished. Do you want them all, or only a few? We'll take them all, thanks. Jack paid the man, and his assistant sent access to all the pictures through email. Bella beamed up at him. Thank you, Jack. Together they walked toward the massive mountain with its underground roller coaster. They had to wait in the queue for a few minutes. Laughter and screams filled the air around them. Sounds like people are having a lot of fun. Bella pulled out her smartphone, opening the note-taking app, and started typing. What are you doing? Jack lifted one eyebrow, studying her. I'm taking notes on how we feel about each ride and what people around us are saying about the rides we go on. That way we'll have a better feel for what people are really excited about as we design the adventure park. Bella was busy writing down what the teenagers ahead of them said about what they didn't like about their last ride. I want to write it down in their words and speak their language. That will help us when we're ready to market the adventure park to the public. Impressive. Jack looked at her as if seeing her for the first time. Bella warmed at his praise. Just doing what I need to get a good feel for what people love in a theme park. Before long, it was their turn to get on the roller coaster. They sat down in the blue cone-shaped rocket. Bella sat in the seat in front of Jack, making some last-minute notes on her smartphone. Hang on, Bella. Here we go. Bella quickly slipped her smartphone inside her pocket. As the cone-shaped rocket propelled forward, she gripped the handles in front of her. They rode the rails, and the pulsating blue lights got faster as they went. After many twists and turns, traveling through the field of stars, comets, asteroids, and a red swirling wormhole, they finally slowed down as they reached the unloading station. Jack jumped off first and held out his hand. Bella gripped his hand, throwing him a shaky smile. Her legs wobbled as she stepped out. Jack put his arm around her waist. Are you okay? His warm breath against her ear sent shivers up her spine. Yeah, I'm all right, Jack. Just a little shook up from flying at the speed of light through space. Bella grinned at him. When one corner of his mouth turned up, it felt like a win. Jack didn't smile as much as he should. Do you want to stop? We could just walk around the park. They stepped outside once again. Bella closed her eyes for a moment, enjoying the heat of the sun on her skin. No, we don't need to stop, Jack. I'm all right. She peered over at him, a wide smile turning up the corners of her lips. Well, we really have only time to see 2 more items on our list. Should we tour the Sleeping Princess Castle and check out the pirate ship? Bella smiled and grabbed his hand. Sounds like fun, Jack. Jack squeezed her hand, and they began walking. He stopped and bought 2 bottles of water to take with him. It was enchanting to walk across the drawbridge and under the archway of the castle. They began to follow along with the fairy tale as they walked. Bella got a closer look at the stained glass castle windows. Each window was a beautiful illustration of each part of the love story between the princess and her prince. They walked all the way through to the last station, where the storybook and vivid images portrayed true love's first kiss. Bella sighed at the romantic ending and looked up at Jack. Jack raised his eyebrows and looked at the ceiling as they walked out of the castle. I guess for a fairy tale love story, it's pretty good. He pointed back at the castle. But we all know that's definitely not real life. Bella sighed to herself. She'd only heard small tidbits of Jack's marriage and the death of his wife and unborn son from Aunt Maisie. Even though she didn't know all the details, she could tell Jack was hurting. It was clear he was cynical about love. She hoped that someday Jack would be able to let go of that pain and heartache. The pirate's sign loomed over their heads, and they stepped into the cave-like building where they would ride in the pirate ship. Palm trees hung down from their tall perches, and bony skeletons dangled in the corners. As they passed by another ride, she noticed one man with red hair and a beard who had an uncanny resemblance to the man who grabbed her from the street all those years ago. Bella stopped, and her whole body shuddered. The man turned toward her. When she realized it wasn't the same man, she breathed out slowly. "What's wrong, Bella?" Jack placed one hand under her chin, looking deeply into her eyes. "Oh, it's nothing, Jack." Bella exhaled an unsteady breath. "I think I'm seeing things. Here in this dark cave, the shadows are somewhat unnerving." He arched one eyebrow, looking doubtfully at her, before they walked toward the next ride. They showed their pass to the teenager at the entrance, and soon were seated side by side in the front row of the pirate ship. As the ship moved along the passageway through the tunnel, the rippling sound of moving water was soothing to Bella's rattled nerves. "Now this is fun. The design I had in mind for the pirate ship at the Rose Adventure Park looks a little more adventurous, but this one is also quite diverting." Jack pointed to the man swinging from a rope across the water. They turned a corner, and suddenly there were pirates and booty everywhere on the small island beside the water. It was too dark to take notes. Bella made a mental note to remember all the details so she could write them down later. The ship continued to move forward, going down a small waterfall and then toward a long dark cave. Bella grabbed Jack's hand as they went inside the cave, her hands clammy from fear. Without warning, the ship stopped in the middle of the cave. It was pitch black all around them. "Jack, why did we stop?" "I don't know. I'm sure we'll be moving again soon." A man behind them got out of the boat to go contact the theme park's manager to tell them what happened. Bella's teeth chattered and her knees started shaking. "I'm scared, Jack." "Come here then. I'm right beside you. I'll take care of you." Jack placed his arm around her and pulled her close to his side. Bella leaned her head on his chest and placed her arms around his waist, needing to feel his warmth and protection. "I just don't like dark places. It makes me feel trapped. Being in this dark cave feels a lot like that. I'm really worried." Bella chattered on, her fears getting the better of her. "Maybe I can help." "How can you?" Bella whispered when suddenly she felt Jack's hand tilt her chin upwards. His lips touched down on hers. Bella shivered as the warmth of his lips caressed hers. Melting into his embrace, she slid her arms around his neck, drawing him closer. Her husband's hands moved in soft circles along her back. His lips nipped and pulled on her own. Her body melted into a liquid pool of heat with his sweet kiss. She never wanted it to end. Suddenly, a loud rumbling noise began beneath the boat. Startled, Bella pulled away. "The boat! It's moving again." "Good," Jack spoke, his voice sounding out of breath as he removed his arm from around her. Bella thought she heard him mumble something about the motor starting not a moment too soon, but it was hard to hear with the noise of people talking and the whirring of the boat. Soon the ship moved out of the dark cave and back into the sunlight. Bella's face heated as she thought of Jack's kisses. Her lips still throbbed from his tender exploration. He was probably right that it wasn't a moment too soon that the motor turned on, because she could have kissed him all night long. Her feelings for him were getting more confusing with each day she spent time with him. Bella peered over at him, only to see him studying her, his brows furrowed. "What's wrong, Jack?" "Nothing's wrong. Not a blasted thing." Jack's words were short. His voice sounded gruff. Bella squared her shoulders and looked straight ahead, ignoring his surliness. Jack was so confusing, not to mention maddening. One moment he was kind and thoughtful, and the next moment he acted like a surly beast. One moment he kissed her like he was starving for his last meal, and the next moment he was gruff and bad-mannered. She reminded herself of the terms of their marriage contract. Their agreement was for a marriage in name only. Falling in love with him was not part of the plan. Bella was determined not to let a few of Jack's kisses turn her head. She just had to keep her distance. But how would she manage to do that when she was so endlessly fascinated by him? They had been forced together for days on end. How would she avoid getting closer to him?